These 5 super disasters nearly destroyed the Earth, and the dinosaur extinction only ranks last among them. The universe we live in is estimated to be at least 20 billion years old, and our home planet, Earth, is 4.6 billion years old. In the time it took for Earth to survive until humans appeared, it had already endured countless super disasters. Today, we're going to talk about 5 disasters that almost obliterated the Earth. 4.1 billion years ago, when Earth was still in its infancy, it was struck by a massive meteor shower. The impact lasted for an unimaginably long time, a full 30 million years. Astronomers call this catastrophe the Late Heavy Bombardment. Back then, the inner solar system wasn't as clean as it is now. It was filled with cosmic debris. Under the influence of Earth's gravity, these fragments, they constantly crashed into the Earth, and the size of these fragments was terrifyingly large. The smallest were several kilometers in diameter, while the largest were hundreds of kilometers wide. The power of their impact on Earth was truly cataclysmic. We all know that on October 30th, 1961, on Novaya Zemlya in the Arctic Ocean, the Soviet Union detonated the most powerful hydrogen bomb in human history, the Tsar Bomba. The explosion's fireball spanned 10 kilometers, even puncturing the atmosphere. People as far as 1,000 kilometers away saw the blinding flash of the blast. The shock wave from the explosion circled the Earth 3 times before finally subsiding. But in the supermeteor shower 41 years ago, every single fragment that hit the Earth was more powerful than the Tsar Bomba. All the soil and rock on the surface at that time were completely obliterated. Magma from deep within the mantle erupted from the cracks. If you had been observing from space back then, Earth wouldn't be the blue planet it is today. Instead, it would have been a crimson planet of roiling lava. Fortunately, life had not yet emerged on Earth. Otherwise, under the bombardment of such massive meteor showers, any life form would have been instantly incinerated. In fact, many interesting stories like this have already been adapted into excellent films and television works. Although we cannot witness such world-shaking spectacles firsthand, great cinematic works can make us feel as if we were there. However, if you want to enjoy this kind of epic visual feast, a great viewing experience is definitely key. Now, some might ask, how can I watch without a membership? Well, don't worry about that. For the official 10th anniversary, they've just released a large number of spots for free annual VIP memberships. Just participate in the comments section for a chance to win a premium annual card. You can choose from any of the 4 major platforms and watch whatever you want. Once you get it, the ads are gone, and you can enjoy all the latest shows in 4K HD. It's exciting just thinking about it. The giveaway is in the comments. Spots are limited, so it's first come, first served. I've already told my friends to call me immediately if there's ever another deal like this. But interestingly, this meteor shower that lasted for 30 million years, while it seemed to be destroying the Earth, it was actually more like an ultimate fragmentation, a cosmic trial of sorts. Earth ultimately survived this long cosmic storm and emerged even more resilient than before for the subsequent birth of life. If the threat of the supermeteor shower came from space, then the Great Oxygenation Event was purely an internal biological catastrophe. Life already existed on Earth as far back as 2.4 billion years ago. But these life forms were primarily anaerobic organisms, such as archaea. Take bacteria, they were thriving in an environment completely devoid of oxygen. Every day, they only needed to consume organic matter from the ocean. The oxygen that humans breathe was a deadly toxin to them. The instigator of this disaster was cyanobacteria, a life form that had only recently emerged on Earth. We can think of them as the ancestors of all plants. Under some unknown guidance, cyanobacteria suddenly mastered a revolutionary ability, photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is quite remarkable. We can make a separate video to explain it later. It uses sunlight, water and carbon dioxide to sustain life, expelling oxygen as a waste gas. Cyanobacteria then began to multiply rapidly throughout the oceans. Each cyanobacterium was like a miniature oxygen factory. As oxygen levels gradually built up globally, a silent genocide began. The anaerobic organisms on Earth at the time had nowhere to hide. They likely never expected to be attacked by so much oxygen and were ruthlessly wiped out. This was the only time in the history of life on Earth that a mass extinction was caused by such a singular reason. Well, it's understandable. Take Earth today. If we ran out of oxygen, most life would perish. But if you think the Great Oxygenation Event only wiped out anaerobic life, you're mistaken. As Earth's oxygen levels exploded, oxygen broke down all the methane in the atmosphere. Methane is the primary greenhouse gas. Once the methane was gone, the greenhouse effect vanished. Earth's temperature began to plummet. At that time, the entire planet was almost completely frozen into a giant snowball. This frozen state didn't return to normal until millions of years later. Astronomers later named this period the Huronian glaciation. You know, I can't help but feel that the Great Oxidation Event seems almost orchestrated. If Earth had remained an oxygen-free environment, it could never have nurtured complex life. In a sense, cyanobacteria performed a complete system format on Earth, deleting everything, useful or not. As we just mentioned, due to the cyan, the Huronian glaciation caused by algae wasn't even the worst of it. By 720 million years ago, Earth entered the ultimate freezing mode, the Sturgeon glaciation. How severe was this ice age? Even the tropical equator was frozen over. At TD time, Earth's land environment was very different from what it is today. Almost all land was clustered around the equator, and everything else was ocean. This resulted in extremely severe rock weathering. This weathering process consumed massive amounts of carbon dioxide. And don't forget, cyanobacteria in the oceans were still continuously producing oxygen. As a result, Earth's temperature began to plummet once more. The surface was completely frozen over, as ice sheets stacked and grew thicker layer by layer. These thick ice sheets reflect most of the sunlight back into space, creating a vicious cycle. The colder it gets, the more it freezes, and the more it freezes, the more sunlight is reflected, making the ice sheets even thicker. Eventually, Earth turned into a shimmering white marble in the void of space. With an average temperature of -50 degrees, all life was trapped beneath layers of ice several kilometers thick. Perhaps only near deep-sea hydrothermal vents could some life manage to survive. Now, some might ask, if Earth was frozen so solid, how did it eventually thaw out? The answer is volcanoes. We know that the closer you get to Earth's core, the higher the temperature rises. After being frozen for millions of years, subterranean volcanoes began to erupt on a massive scale. Beyond the magma's ability to melt through the ice sheets, volcanoes also released massive amounts of carbon dioxide. The gas quickly built up, and atmospheric CO2 levels gradually surpassed oxygen. This created a greenhouse effect, raising temperatures and melting the ice caps. As a result, Earth's temperature returned to normal within just a few thousand years. After this trial, it was as if Earth had unlocked its full potential, ushering in a massive explosion of life. This was the Cambrian explosion. Familiar creatures like trilobites, Anomalocaris, Cael, and Hallucigenia, all these bizarre, complex animals debuted during that era. This prosperity lasted for 200 million years, but after that time, another mass extinction event struck. This was the Permian mass extinction. But you would never guess that volcanoes were also the culprit behind this disaster. In the previous disaster, volcanoes saved the Earth, but in this extinction, they were the cause. Located in what is now Siberia, Russia, a supervolcano, erupted violently 250 million years ago. How long did the eruption last? For roughly several 100,000 years. Scientists estimate that during the peak of the eruptions, the lava flows covered an area of 7 million square kilometers. This area is roughly the same size as the entire country of Australia today. The volcanic eruptions also brought 3 other deadly hazards. Those were toxic gas, oxygen depletion, and radiation. Volcanoes spew not only carbon dioxide, but also sulfur dioxide. These substances easily form toxic acids. Since creatures back then couldn't build shelters, they had nowhere to hide. As carbon dioxide levels rose, oxygen naturally decreased. With less oxygen, many animals suffocated and died. The ecological balance of the seabed was also disrupted. At that time, the seawater turned black from volcanic pollution. The air was filled with methane and toxic hydrogen sulfide. But that's not all. The supervolcanic eruptions also damaged the ozone layer, letting in all kinds of high-radiation cosmic rays. Radiation beamed directly onto the ground through the ozone hole. Even the animals that had managed to survive until then wouldn't be able to endure this stage. Ultimately, life on Earth was thoroughly purged. 95% of marine species and 70% of land species vanished from existence. The trilobites, which had dominated the oceans for hundreds of millions of years, finally met their end. Even today, you can see many fossil hunters abroad, constantly searching through volcanic rock for such remains. Most of what they find are animals from the Permian mass extinction, encased in magma and fossilized. The most recent mass extinction event is the one we're all familiar with, the extinction of the dinosaurs. This occurred 66 million years ago during the Cretaceous period, when an asteroid about 10 kilometers in diameter struck the Earth. It carved a massive 180-kilometer crater into the Earth, triggering 1,000-meter tsunamis and volcanic ash reaching 10,000 meters. This sun-blotting cataclysm led to the extinction of 75% of all species on Earth, with dinosaurs being the hardest hit. However, recent findings suggest that the dinosaur extinction was likely the result of multiple factors working together. Ultimately, what truly drove them toward extinction was an internal problem of their own. For example, scientists discovered that 90% of dinosaur eggshells from the late Cretaceous period had become thinner. The thickness dropped from the original 2.8 millimeters to less than 1 millimeter. This structural defect meant that the baby dinosaurs simply could not hatch. There is another hypothesis that is particularly worth reflecting on. Dinosaurs were almost entirely wiped out, except for a few that evolved into birds, but beyond to Asteroid on a stage of Bell, and except for a few that evolved into birds, but many other animal species were actually unaffected. So, some suspect that the real reason for the dinosaurs' fate might be behavioral sink. In our previous video on the experiment predicting human destiny, we detailed the Universe 25 experiment. Essentially, when thousands of mice are placed in a carefree utopia without natural predators. This behavioral sink occurs over time. The specific behaviors of these mice include losing their sense of purpose, social withdrawal, gender blurring, orientation confusion, hidden violence, and loss of fertility. Think about it. Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for 160 million years. During this period, they had no natural enemies, and their food supply was essentially infinite. So, over time, dinosaur populations facing no survival threats for long periods could indeed experience behavioral sink. And once behavioral sink occurs, it is irreversible and will inevitably lead to the population ceasing to reproduce. If the older dinosaurs were riddled with disease and no new ones were being born, then the species would surely go extinct. So, looking at it this way, we shouldn't really call ourselves the masters of the Earth. At most, we are just temporary caretakers. Any one of the disasters we've discussed today would be an absolute catastrophe if it happened to humanity. As for the Earth, humans are insignificant, but compared to the universe, Earth is also quite tiny. Perhaps our entire universe is nothing more than a speck of dust within some higher dimensional matter. So, let us have reverence for life. Alright, thanks for watching. I'm Tony, and I'll see you in the next one.